The silence of the Voidspire was absolute, crushing in its weight yet eerily hollow like a forgotten tomb drifting endlessly in the abyss. Commander Lyra Kane's eyes fluttered open, the sterile hum of the alien base's life support systems barely registering in the stillness of her mind. It was a cold awakening, disoriented and incomplete, like waking from a dream into a nightmare that had yet to reveal itself. Memories came in shards, fragments of a mission, a desperate call, and then nothing. An empty void where answers should have been. She sat up slowly, muscles aching from disuse or injury, the metallic cold of the chamber pressing against her back. The Voidspire was an enigma, a sprawling alien station discovered on the fringes of known space, emitting cryptic signals that had drawn the attention of every major power. Earth's coalition had dispatched a team, specialists in xenotechnology, linguistics, and security, but the transmission had gone dark. Until now. Lyra's mind raced. What had happened to her crew? To the base itself? The last recorded message was garbled, a cryptic warning about the eyes in the dark and the silence between stars. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the comm panel. Static hissed back. No connection. The isolation was suffocating. Every instinct screamed danger, yet a deeper force compelled her forward. She pushed herself up, steadying her breath, and rose to her feet in the narrow cryochamber. Around her, the walls pulsed faintly with alien glyphs, symbols that seemed to shift and writhe when she wasn't looking directly at them. It was as if the station itself was alive, watching, waiting. Lyra's voice cracked over the comm in a desperate attempt to reach any survivors. This is Commander Kane. If anyone is alive, respond. Please. I'm not alone. Her only answer was the cold echo of her own voice, swallowed by the void. The Voidspire's corridors stretched endlessly into darkness. A labyrinth woven from alien technology and forgotten purpose. Lyra's boots echoed softly on the cold, metallic floor as she moved cautiously, every step a question unanswered. The station was unlike any human design, organic in some places, crystalline in others, as if it had grown from the fabric of the stars themselves rather than been built. Her fingers traced the walls instinctively, trying to decipher the alien script that adorned every surface. It seemed to pulse faintly with a rhythm, a heartbeat that was not her own. The comm system remained dead, a void within the void. It was as if the station was intentionally severing her from the outside world. But why? What threat lurked in the silence that had silenced her team? Her thoughts churned as she rounded a corner, the glow of bioluminescent veins beneath the surface casting an eerie blue light. Suddenly, the air shifted, a whisper, a subtle vibration in the atmosphere. Lyra froze. Then came the sound. A faint scraping, mechanical and deliberate, echoing from deeper. Within the station's bowels, her pulse quickened, senses sharpening. Was it a malfunctioning drone? An automated defense system gone rogue? Or something else? Her hand reached instinctively for the sidearm holstered at her thigh, a compact plasma pistol designed for close encounters with anything hostile. She moved forward, every fiber of her being alert, heart pounding in tandem with the station's alien pulse. The corridors narrowed, twisting unexpectedly, leading her to a chamber that resembled a fusion of organic nerve center and control hub. Here, the technology felt almost sentient, wires like veins and nodes like synapses connecting in a vast neural network. In the center, a massive crystalline core pulsed with an unearthly light, casting long shadows that danced like specters on the walls. As Lyra stepped closer, her vision caught movement, a flicker, a silhouette slipping behind a pillar. Her voice barely a whisper, she called out, "Who's there? Show yourself." No answer came, only the steady thrum of the core. Her breath was ragged, the silence thick with tension. She realized then that the station itself was alive in some unfathomable way, and its heartbeat was both beacon and warning. Reaching out, she placed her hand on the crystalline core. The moment her skin made contact, a surge of images flooded her mind, visions of stars collapsing, civilizations rising and falling, and a presence watching from the void between dimensions. The station was a relic of an ancient intelligence, designed to observe and contain a cosmic threat beyond comprehension. Lyra staggered back, gasping for air, the weight of the revelation pressing down on her like a physical force. She was not just stranded on a station, she was inside a living archive of the universe's darkest secrets. And whatever had silenced her, the images still swirled behind Lyra's eyelids, a cascade of cosmic memories that refused to fade. Her body trembled. Not from fear, but from the overwhelming weight of revelation. The Voidspire was more than a station, it was a sentinel, a guardian forged in the primordial chaos of creation. It held knowledge both terrifying and sublime, secrets whispered in the language of dying stars and shadowed galaxies. Slowly, she composed herself, forcing a steady breath as the alien glyphs on the walls seemed to shimmer with newfound urgency. The pulse of the crystalline core had shifted, it beat faster now, resonating with her own heartbeat as if the station recognized her presence and responded in kind. She pressed deeper into the maze of corridors, guided by instinct and the faint flickers of light pulsing beneath the surface. Every step echoed like a whispered prayer in the cathedral of the void. The silence was no longer empty, it hummed with potential, with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Her hand brushed over a console embedded in the wall, ancient technology responding to her touch with a chorus of synthetic tones. Symbols rearranged themselves before her eyes, forming a pattern she could not immediately understand but somehow felt drawn to decipher. Time seemed to fold in on itself as she focused, translating the alien code into fragments of memory and warning. The eyes in the dark are not merely watchers, they are hunters, the message began, its meaning sinking deep into her consciousness. The silence is a veil concealing the coming storm. Beware the void's children, the echoes of those lost to the abyss. Lyra's breath caught. The warnings were not just historical, they were imminent. The station was not a relic trapped in time, but an active outpost standing guard against a creeping menace. She recalled the garbled transmission from her missing crew, fragments about shadows feeding on light and voices that devour sanity. They had encountered something that had shattered their minds and silenced their voices. A shiver ran down her spine. The Voidspire was alive, and so was its enemy. She steeled herself, knowing that to survive meant understanding the nature of this cosmic predator. It was a being not bound by flesh or bone, but a shadow born from the very fabric of space-time, feeding on consciousness and fear. To confront it, she would have to reach beyond the limits of human comprehension. Lyra's fingers danced over the console, unlocking access to the station's archive. A holographic map flickered to life, revealing a network of chambers and tunnels, each pulsing with alien energy and cryptic warnings. One chamber in particular drew her attention, the heart of the void, a sealed vault said to contain the final key to understanding the station's purpose. With no other choice, Lyra set her course, the weight of destiny pressing down like the cold vacuum outside. Every step carried her deeper into the unknown, into a confrontation that would test the limits of her courage, sanity, and the very essence of what it meant to be human in a universe that whispered of horrors beyond imagining. The corridors grew narrower and more twisted as Lyra approached the chamber, known only as the Heart of the Void. The station's alien architecture seemed to pulse with urgency, as if the very walls were aware of her presence and intent. Every step felt heavier, the air thick with an unseen tension that made her skin crawl. She fought the rising tide of anxiety, reminding herself that fear was a weapon the void wielded to consume the unwary. At last, she reached a massive door, etched with complex sigils that shimmered faintly under her touch. The surface was cool but thrummed with power, resonating deep within her bones. She hesitated, knowing that beyond this threshold lay the truth she both sought and dreaded. With a steady breath, she activated the ancient mechanism. The door groaned open, revealing a chamber bathed in a dim, pulsating light. Inside, the air was dense, charged with an energy that felt almost alive. At the center stood a crystalline construct, larger and more encoded in the crystalline core. Each fragment of data revealed a history of conflict between cosmic entities and the station's creators, beings who had sacrificed everything to imprison a primordial darkness, a sentient void that fed on light, memory, and life itself. This darkness, known as the Umbral Maw, was not merely a force of nature but a cunning predator, evolving and adapting across eons. It consumed stars, twisted realities, and shattered minds. The Voidspire was humanity's first real encounter with the Maw's relentless hunger, and the price had been steep. Lyra's hands trembled as she deciphered logs from her crew, each entry a testament to courage and despair. They had tried to seal the Maw's influence but were overwhelmed by the shadows it cast, figures that slipped through walls, voices that whispered madness, and the suffocating weight of despair that crushed resistance. The station's systems began to flicker erratically, a sign that the Maw's presence was not confined to legend but was manifesting in real time. Alarms sounded in her mind, an urgent call to action. Lyra clenched her fists. She was the last line of defense now, the sentinel chosen by the Voidspire to stand against the abyss. With every ounce of resolve, she prepared to confront the growing darkness, to fight not just for survival, but for the light of all existence hanging precariously in the balance. The void outside was no longer empty. It was hungry. The corridors of the Voidspire trembled with a new energy, one that seeped into the very fabric of the station and twisted the air around Lyra. The Umbral Maw was no longer a distant menace lurking beyond the stars. It was here, its presence a creeping shadow that slithered just beyond sight, corrupting everything it touched. The station's bioluminescent veins flickered unevenly, casting fractured light and darkness, a visual symphony of impending chaos. Lyra's senses sharpened as she moved cautiously through the winding passageways, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the void. Her sidearm hummed softly, the only reassurance in this labyrinth of alien life and malevolent silence. The shadows themselves seemed to breathe, whispering in a language older than time, voices slipping into her mind like poison, soft, insidious words meant to unravel her sanity. The station's systems flickered erratically, communication channels cut in and out like fleeting ghosts. The crystalline core's pulse quickened, a frantic rhythm that mirrored the rising tide of dread within her. She knew she was not alone. Something watched from the darkness, unseen but palpably close. Her mind flickered to the last message from her crew, that desperate warning about the eyes in the dark. Now she understood those eyes were the Maw's harbingers, shadows that could slip between realities, hunting the living to feed the insatiable void. They were predators of thought and memory, erasing identities and leaving only emptiness in their wake. Lyra felt a cold pressure against her mind, a subtle but relentless assault on her thoughts. She gritted her teeth, fighting to maintain clarity. The station's ancient technology pulsed with latent energy. If harnessed, it might form a shield against the encroaching darkness. But the Maw was cunning, and every moment it gained eroded the fragile boundary between survival and oblivion. In a narrow junction, a figure materialized, shifting, indistinct, as if made from smoke and broken light. Lyra raised her weapon, but hesitation stopped her finger from squeezing the trigger. The figure did not advance, only watched with hollow, unblinking eyes that seemed to pierce her very soul. "You are the sentinel," the shadow whispered, voice layered with echoes. "The last flame. But even flames burn out in the void." Lyra swallowed her fear and answered firmly, "I will not let the darkness consume the station or what remains of my crew. The Voidspire and I stand together." The shadow flickered, vanishing into the darkness with a promise or a curse. "Then prepare, for the Maw hungers. And it will not rest until all light is devoured." As the figure faded, Lyra felt the weight of destiny more keenly than ever. The battle was no longer just for survival, it was a war for the soul of the cosmos. And in the endless silence of space, her voice would be the beacon that dared to defy the void. The pressure of the Umbral Maw's presence weighed heavily on Lyra's mind, an invisible storm raging behind her eyes. Every breath she took felt thick with the residue of unseen horrors, and the whispered voices threatened to break the fragile barrier of her sanity. The Voidspire's corridors seemed to stretch into infinity, distorting with every step as if the station itself was bending reality to keep her trapped within the darkness. Lyra paused, her hand trembling as she pressed against the cold, pulsating wall. The alien glyphs writhed beneath her fingertips, their energy both soothing and unsettling, like a lullaby sung by an ancient, indifferent cosmos. Her thoughts scattered and reassembled as flashes of her crew's final moments haunted her, each memory fractured and incomplete. They were lost not just to the Maw's physical assault but to a creeping madness that stripped away their humanity piece by piece. She recalled the last recording found on her personal device, a desperate voice breaking under the weight of despair. "The Maw ice inside, not just out there. It's in our minds, in our dreams." The message ended in static and silence. The station's AI, a vestige of the original creator's consciousness, flickered into her HUD, its voice calm but tinged with sorrow. "Commander, psychological degradation detected in crew logs. The Maw's influence manifests through psychic infiltration. Resistance weakens with proximity." Lyra clenched her jaw. This was no ordinary enemy. It invaded thoughts, memories, even the very essence of self. Fighting it would require more than weapons. It demanded unwavering mental strength and connection to the Voidspire's consciousness. She closed her eyes, focusing inward, drawing on the bond forged in the heart of the void. The station's pulse aligned with her own heartbeat, a rhythmic anchor in the storm of fear and uncertainty. Memories of her training, her family, and her unwavering will flooded back, grounding her. But even as she found strength, a new horror emerged, visions of her crew, their faces twisted in agony reaching out from shadowy voids. Were they still alive? Or had the Maw claimed them entirely, leaving behind empty echoes? Determined not to succumb, Lyra set a course deeper into the station's core, seeking the source of the Maw's psychic tendrils. If she could sever its connection to the Voidspire, perhaps she could save what remained of her crew and herself. The silence pressed on, but this time Lyra's voice broke through it, a defiant promise echoing into the vast emptiness. I will fight the darkness. I will reclaim the light. For them. For all of us. The battle for minds had begun. The heart of the Voidspire beat steadily beneath Lyra's feet, a vast network of living energy veins that pulsed with the station's indomitable will to survive. She could feel it now, the intimate connection between herself and the alien construct, a bond forged in moments of revelation and terror. But the Maw's corruption was spreading fast, like ink bleeding through water, darkening everything it touched. Time was slipping through her fingers like stardust. Ahead, the crystalline core flickered, a beacon of hope in this endless void, but also a fragile one. Lyra knew that if the Maw succeeded in corrupting or shattering this core, the station would fall, and with it, any chance humanity had of stopping the darkness beyond. Her footsteps echoed with determination as she approached the chamber once more, this time with urgency burning in every breath. The air thickened, charged with the invisible battle raging unseen, between light and shadow, order and chaos. Lyra's mind strained against the psychic assaults, whispers of despair clawing at her resolve. But the Voidspire lent her strength, its ancient energy weaving around her like a protective shield. She raised her hands, channeling the station's power through her very being, feeling the surge of alien energy course from her fingertips to the crystalline heart. With a soundless scream, waves of radiant light exploded outward, pushing back the creeping darkness. The Maw's tendrils writhed and recoiled but did not vanish. It was patient, an ancient predator that thrived on persistence and fear. Lyra's breath hitched, sweat tracing cold trails down her temples as she pushed herself beyond every limit. Visions flashed again, faces of her lost crew, flickering like ghosts, pleading for salvation. Their sacrifice was etched into the station's core, fueling the light she wielded now. She had to honor them. Had to hold the line. Suddenly, the core flared brighter than ever, a beacon piercing the void. The station's alien consciousness spoke within her mind, a chorus of ancient voices harmonizing with her own. Guardian, the Maw recoils but will return. Stand vigilant. The void's silence is but a prelude. Lyra steadied herself, knowing the battle was far from over. The Voidspire and she were united now, a living fortress of light against the endless dark. She would hold the line, whatever the cost. And in the cold expanse of space, where silence had once reigned supreme, a new voice emerged, one of defiance, hope, and unyielding strength. The fragile victory at the Voidspire's core had bought Lyra precious moments, but the false sense of calm was short-lived. The station shuddered beneath her feet, the walls groaning with strain as if reality itself was tearing at the seams. The Maw was not defeated, only delayed, and now it was striking with greater force, its hunger undeniable. Lyra's breath steamed in the chilled air as warning sirens flared throughout the station, the sound distorted by waves of psychic interference. Her head throbbed under the crushing pressure of unseen eyes watching her every move. Shadows pooled unnaturally along the walls, stretching and convulsing like living entities, defying logic and physics. They whispered in fractured voices, fragments of her crew's last desperate pleas for help tangled with the Maw's malevolent promises. She gritted her teeth, steadying herself against the chaos. The crystalline core behind her pulsed weakly, its energy drained from the earlier confrontation. If she didn't act fast, the Voidspire's defenses would collapse entirely, leaving the station and herself exposed to the full wrath of the Umbral Maw. The holographic map flickered to life at her command, displaying the station's vast and decaying structure. One location stood out, the containment nexus, a sealed section designed to imprison the Maw's influence when the station's creators were still alive. But it had been dormant for millennia, its systems failing, its security fractured. If Lyra could reach it, override the failsafes, and reactivate the station's ancient defenses, there was still a chance. A slim one, but hope had always been humanity's most dangerous weapon. She set off, plasma pistol in hand, navigating the labyrinthine corridors where the Maw's presence thickened with every step. Reality blurred around her edges, walls bending, gravity distorting, the distant echoes of her own heartbeat coming back twisted and wrong. Time itself seemed fragmented, moments stretching unnaturally as the station warped under the Maw's assault. As she pressed forward, shadow-formed creatures emerged, manifestations of the Maw's will. Hollow-eyed silhouettes, their bodies rippling like liquid darkness, advancing in unnatural silence. They weren't physical beings, but constructs of pure thought, feeding off fear and doubt. Lyra fired, bolts of energy searing through the darkness, dispersing the figures momentarily, but they reformed like smoke, relentless. She pushed forward, every muscle burning, every ounce of will focused on survival. Her mind screamed under the Maw's psychic assault, but she clung to fragments of herself, her training, her memories, the faces of those she had vowed to protect. Finally, the doors to the containment nexus loomed ahead, sealed beneath layers of ancient alien tech. With the last reserves of her strength, Lyra initiated the override sequence. Behind her, the shadows closed in. The ancient doors of the containment nexus groaned open, releasing a wave of stale, frozen air thick with forgotten history. The chamber beyond pulsed with faint, flickering energy, a graveyard of alien technology buried under layers of dust and time. Lyra stumbled inside, the shadows at her back howling with the Maw's hunger, their whispers clawing at her sanity, twisting her memories into lies. Her vision blurred, reality bending under the Maw's assault. The walls bled shadows, impossible figures stretched along the periphery of her sight, their eyes hollow, their forms rippling like liquid darkness. They were no longer content to haunt the edges, they were breaking through, clawing into the physical realm, driven by the Maw's insatiable will to consume. Lyra's fingers shook as she activated the control terminal, ancient glyphs illuminating beneath her touch. The system sputtered to life, lines of forgotten code cascading across the interface. The station's AI, fragmented but present, spoke in a chorus of fractured voices, containment failure imminent. Final protocol requires human integration. Her heart sank. The price was clear, the Nexus could be reactivated, the Maw's breach sealed, but only if she became part of the station itself, sacrificing her physical form, merging her consciousness with the Voidspire to stand eternal vigil. Outside, the shadows surged, the chamber trembling as the first of the Maw's constructs breached the threshold. Their shapes were impossible amalgamations of thought and void, their faces flickering between her fallen crew, her own fears, and formless nightmares from beyond comprehension. She had seconds to decide. Her hand hovered over the final command sequence. Memories flashed, Earth's blue oceans, her crew's laughter, the stars glittering like distant promises of hope. The Maw offered only oblivion, a universe stripped of light, identity, and purpose. Lyra inhaled deeply, steadying herself. Her voice cut through the chaos, defiant and resolute. If I fall with purpose. But I will not let the darkness win. With trembling resolve, she initiated the final protocol. Pain lanced through every nerve, her body dissolving into energy, her consciousness expanding, intertwining with the station's neural lattice. The walls pulsed, the core reigniting with blinding light. The shadows screamed, recoiling as containment fields surged to life, ancient technology fusing with her will, her memories anchoring the Voidspire's defiance. The Nexus sealed. The Maw's breach closed. The shadows faded, howling their rage as they were cast back into the abyss beyond space and time. And Lyra Kane became more than human, an eternal guardian embedded within the station, her voice echoing across the silent corridors, watching, waiting, protecting. In the endless void, a solitary light burned, a warning to the darkness, a promise to those who might come after. The Voidspire stands. The Maw waits. But so do I.